ago, and I wanted to make sure I provided that with you. Nobody will come out and say that this is the magic number that you have to have. What I did report to you is what the FBI shows as what is the normal for when they do the study across the nation, and that's 1.8 to 2.4 officers per 1,000 residents. If you look at the graph at the bottom, we are at 1.7 at this point in time. I think with the plan that we have as being a proactive police department, as much activity as we do in this community, as much community service as we do, I feel like we do a good job of representing the city. We're at the events. We're at the events that we don't host. We're at ball games. We try to be everywhere to be good representatives of the city and put our best foot forward. In a meeting last night, one of the Board of Works members said, you know, the face of the police department may be the only face that a citizen ever encounters, and that's very accurate. So, you know, hopefully being able to add more officers will provide us with some relief, for one, for the officers that are working, but then provide us with more personnel to get to those events. It's been a pretty long, stressful year trying to make sure we get everybody to everything that we can. The other document is one that you requested. You wanted to know what a breakdown was per year based on when we hired them. So the January is the full amount that we would be asking for the 2 salaries. And then the breakdown as we go down through, if it's a 4-week month or a 5-week month, would be how much comes off of each of those months to put us at 0 going into December. So, you know, if they don't get hired until April, then we're looking at that number there as the amount that we would need to add into the budget. In talking to the Clerk Treasurer, we talked about that money doesn't have to be added before the year starts. That money could be added any time during the year if it looks like we need that money to finish out the year, if that makes sense. Be happy to answer any questions.
You add the 2 additional offers, what's that change the percentage to?
It takes us up to 1.9, so it moves us above Columbus, but still keeps us below Seymour.
If we approve the 2, I'm just trying to think, what ordinance would we need to amend? If it's not the salary ordinance, it's, I mean, because we'd have to change, because right now with the budget, basically reference, what was it, 22? Is that right?
We're budgeted for 22 total.
Right,
yes.
and so then this would take it to 24. I'm just trying to think, which ordinance would we have to amend?
We would have to do an additional appropriation, so we wouldn't have to amend an ordinance. Our salary ordinance doesn't lay out the number of spots that are funded by the salary ordinance. The budget dictates what is funded by the.
And so even though coming back later and asking for an additional appropriation, I don't know how it, I guess maybe, Chris, your opinion on how would we go about, I don't want to give you, we come back and we say, all right, let's hire those officers, and then you come back for the additional appropriation and we decide, well, we don't want to give you that money. So how do we go through to give you the, if we decide to do that, to give you the blessing to hire them with the intention that we know we're going to do an additional appropriation later in the year? Maybe what's the procedure?
I would say procedurally, if you put that in your motion, like if you put the intention in the motion, then that would be sufficient record. I mean, I don't think there's a clear black and white answer particularly, but I do believe that if the minutes reflect an intention to do that, then I think you would be, I mean, it's not legally, the concept would be something like res judicata or stopped from coming something different, but those specific legal terms don't actually apply to municipal council decisions. But I think it would be viewed as a binding determination if you included it in your motion. At least that would be my recommendation.
I just want to make sure if we do that, we're protecting you in that way too, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess the other question I have, oh bless you, the number that we see here, like for January, if we hired them folks in January, does that also include, because we did put some money in the budget in case we got the COPS grant, right? So is that including, is that already factored into this?
This is salary only. The money that we'd included for FICA, Medicare and all that, we left that where it was because that amount is not, it's not a huge amount. Just because we were anticipating that COPS grant hopefully coming through. It didn't, obviously.
Curious question.
Yes, sir.
How many officers do we have per shift? Or does it vary?
So it varies. We do feathering shifts, so not every officer, so we don't have like an A shift that starts at a certain time. We feather our officers, they come in at different times. So the first guy comes in at 5 a.m., the second guy at 6 a.m., and so on throughout the day at different times. We can get more coverage that way. It's a better way to do it. It also helps us with overtime because if a guy has got 1 hour left, but the other guy's got 2 hours left, and a call comes out, the 2-hour guy will try to take that call to alleviate the 1-hour guy maybe getting tied up in a call.
What is the number of officers we might have on duty at one time?
Sure. So minimum is always 2. That's our minimum. You can't go below 2. And if we're gonna go below 2, people are getting called out to cover. The maximum we have is probably 4 when we're talking about patrol. During the daytime, when you talk about administrators and detectives, you're looking at probably about 6.
So there's times that we only have 2 officers
Yes.
covering the entire city.
Yes, the way we do the feathered shifts, especially with, releasing 2 new officers here in the next 2 weeks, we'll be releasing 2 of our new officers. We're only looking at maybe, is it about 3 hours that we have 2 officers out, and it's usually in the very early morning hours as people are getting up and getting ready to go to work.
Do you have any idea how many county officers are on duty at one time?
They're very similar to us, so their minimum is 2. I think because they run standard shifts, their maximum is usually 4 that are doing patrol.
So we could be in a situation where we have 4 officers covering the county.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Playing
22
devil.
officers currently.
Currently 22, that's counting me, so 21 officers myself, so 22 total. Does that make sense?
There's 21 and there's 22 counting you.
22 counting me. I can break that down for you by ranks and structure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Playing devil's advocate here. So we left a little bit of fluff in the budget. Let's say we run out of money in his budget. What are our options after that?
It's the additional appropriation. Yeah.
That's the additional
And that's,
appropriation.
like that second page here, so that's, if we were to hire those 2 officers,
I saw
that's
that.
how much would be in the additional appropriation.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
There's not any money left in there for the salaries. We left the benefits due to mostly accounting.
I guess my question was more to can that money come out of riverboat or rainy day, or is there certain accounts that has to come out of?
I know if we go back to the budget process, if we put that money back in the budget process, I think the general fund would have still been in the green. That's
Yes.
accurate, right? I'm just making sure I'm not saying.
Okay.
So had we put that money in the budget to begin with, the general fund would have still been in the green.
Thank you.
And that's the long-term home of all of the salaries. So it makes sense if we're gonna do it, that it starts there, and then we don't have to move it later.
So if we have an emergency, are there officers on call?
Always on call.
Okay.
The incident we talked about earlier in the Board of Works meeting, I put one call into a shift lieutenant, and he had his whole shift there within 20 minutes to help out.
I believe the chief is looking for I think we should do it in an official motion, should you choose to do so, to authorize him to add 2 positions to his force with the intention of funding that in 2025 at the appropriate time.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Did you guys? The motion is to authorize the chief to add 2 positions to his department with the intention that the council would approve an additional appropriation at the appropriate time in 2025. Motion has been made and seconded already.
Just to comment on that, just to share too, I think, Chief, I'm not, if I say something wrong, correct me here, but we have application process open until I think January 3rd or
Yes.
something like that. And so we're in the process of starting a new application process. So they go through that interview process, and then maybe there's a conditional offer of employment in the February meeting, probably not getting through that process before the January meeting.
It takes a little time to get everybody lined up for testing and interviews and background checks and all that.
So realistically, it's probably, if we authorize it in February, by the time they go through perf, it's maybe March. Just
Yeah.
being fair, it's probably March before they're starting, most likely around that time, maybe late February. So,
Any other?
disagree with that. You-
No, you're extremely, pretty accurate.
Any other questions on that? Well, that's okay. Because it does have sort of a future commitment, for lack of better terms, Chris thought maybe we should roll call vote on this. Is that okay? Okay, motion's already been made and seconded, so with that, Amy, everybody good? Amy, would you please call the roll?
Okay, Jamie Kane,
Yes.
Mark Carmen,
Yes.
Kevin Fleetwood,
Yes.
Rodney King,
Yes.
Diana McKenzie,
Yes.
Daryl Poling,
Yes.
Daryl Tressler.
Yes.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
Okay, Brooke, you're up this evening. We have a second and final reading on 2024 and -25 and 26. This is our water and wastewater rates. I believe we did add some additional information to your packet. Brooke, I don't know that there's anything that's changed outside of that other than last month.
Nope, just informational items that were requested.
I know one of the, just bringing up the conversation, the Board of Works did recommend the wastewater rate study. I think the water boards recommended the water rate study. But the conversation that we had during the Board of Works meeting was, I think approving these rate studies. However, going back and maybe early in the year, taking a look at our capital planning for the future and trying to understand, do we have the right equipment to have the best operational costs for our community, right? So right now, like we're using a clarifier and a sledge press at the wastewater treatment plant. Are those the right pieces of equipment? Are they giving us the most efficiency? Those kind of things, and maybe comparing to other communities, either on that list or other communities around, to make sure we've got the right equipment and we're planning for that long term, right? So, you purchase a new clarifier, that's not something you're going to replace for maybe 20 years, 30 years, right? You're going to have it for a while. So, are we investing in the right equipment and not just maintaining it? So I think that's one of the things that Josh and I have had some conversations with, and we'll make sure that we're pushing into the capital planning in next year.
And then I would also note, just for all of you, that I have reviewed both of these ordinances. There was some minor additional language changes, nothing of substance, nothing related to the rates, just, minor edits of a typographical nature.
Any further question or conversation, discussion?
I have a question, Brooke. In your cover report, you talk about the normal debt coverage ratio of being 115 to 125% normal. I'm not sure what ours is,
Yeah, I can
but
give that.
assuming it's 115, when you look out there in the water report, in the pro formas, we actually drop below that out there several years out. So I think what I'm saying is whether we're gonna have to pay the piper now or we have to pay it later to keep that debt coverage ratio up.
Yeah, so we won't ever let it actually drop below, and you guys are on the 3-year rate report schedule, so within the next 3 years, you're still good, and then in the future, we'll address that. And a lot of times, if there's like one-time project costs within your operating, we back that out because that shouldn't actually be counted in your base. So items like that. So even though in the projected and so far in the future, that will sometimes drop down, that won't actually ever allow that to happen. We work with Donna annually at minimum, so we're always keeping an eye on that number, even if you guys aren't in the middle of a rate report. So just to be clear, we are doing quarterly, semi-annual, and annual updates to keep an eye on.
Yes.
Yep, we're always testing that, so. Great question.
Any council members, anything else? I would entertain a motion to approve 2024-25 on second reading.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Jamie,
Second.
seconded by Rodney. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
I'll make the motion, we pass 2024-25, or 26 on the second reading.
Second.
Motion's been made by Jamie, seconded by Kevin. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, thanks for all your work on it. To our utility team, thanks for all your help. It takes a lot of work to get those done, and we will work towards a January 1st implementation. Okay, we will now move to new business. Whitney and Toby are here from ARA, Administrative Resources and Associates. They help us with a lot of our grant stuff. This was the owner-occupied rehab. I'll let Whitney and Toby talk about what's going on, but it was also brought up by a couple of you, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about it. We actually qualify now as a community, so good evening.
Yes, good evening, council members. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, wonderful. Yes, as the mayor said, he reached out to me a few weeks ago to talk about the owner-occupied rehabilitation program more in depth. And tonight in front of you, I have a resolution that does two things. One, authorizes the mayor to execute a contract with the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. And then it also allocates $50,000 in local match from the Riverboat Fund. But before asking for your vote tonight, I wanted to first provide you some more information about the program itself. We were very excited to hear that Greensburg was interested in implementing this type of program. We've been implementing these programs for about 25 years since the opportunity became available with the Indiana Office of Housing and Community Development Authority. These are HUD dollars, so these are federal funds that are filtered through the state, but I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. So tonight's presentation will cover the program overview, the timeline, budget, and next steps for the community should you decide to move forward with this opportunity. So the owner-occupied rehabilitation program is a resident-focused home repair program designed to assist low to moderate income families. As I said, this is a funding opportunity offered through the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs. This is HUD dollars from the Community Development Block Grant. The max amount of award a city can receive is $350,000 with a 10% local match requirement. And the application window is expected to open mid-January to mid-February of next year, which is why I'm here today, so we can get started on this application as soon as possible. These are some of the program goals of the OOR program. So as I said previously, it is to benefit low and moderate income residents. It enhances housing conditions for limited clientele, and it promotes community stability and sustainability. And I have a little bit more information on what qualifies as low income in the next couple of slides. So once the city is awarded, here is a list of eligible activities. We can help homeowners with roof repairs or replacements, ADA accessibility upgrades up to the exterior of the home. We can replace their HVAC systems, no repairs for this activity. There are select lighting and electrical upgrades, normally to the exterior of the home if someone is having difficulty entering their home because they need lighting or something similar. Typically, we try to keep the repairs to the exterior of the home to avoid the lead paint roll. And then finally, we do water heater replacements as well. After the city is awarded, you'll go through an application process for residents. So we will ask them for information about their household income, and we will ask them about their household composition. If anyone in the house is disabled, or if they're a veteran, single parent, or elderly, we can talk about a scoring criteria and how those applications will rank according to those factors. Again, tying back to the improving housing conditions for limited clientele piece. The next slide shows you what qualifies as low to moderate income according to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. I encourage you to look at the bottom line, low 80% income limits, that's $48,000, $550 a year. So think about your elderly people who are on fixed incomes, living alone. These repairs, we've been administering some of these programs already, and some of the repairs they need are quite expensive. I think it's around $20,000 for a roof, many a times for estimates. And then you look at the four-person family at $69,350. So these are people who are really resource constrained and need some additional assistance to make some critical home repairs to make their home safe and habitable, and promote their quality of life. I wanted to provide you a timeline, a typical timeline for the program if awarded. So we expect an award sometime in March, and then we will begin the grant agreement authorization process. And then the next line will be the income verification process. Once we have our applications, we need to verify their income, of course. So we ask them to self-report, but we do ask for verification of employment, assets on deposit, proof of home ownership, all kinds of paperwork to ensure that this program is meeting its intended beneficiaries. Once residents meet that criteria, the financial or the income verification process, we will start with a home inspection. So we have a licensed home inspector who will come out and determine a scope of work. So again, we really want to keep to those 5 items: the roof repair or replacement, HVAC, water heaters, ADA accessibility upgrades, and lighting. Once we have that information for the scope of work and we have completed our radon testing, which requires a 48-hour process, we will determine a scope of work and bid that out to local contractors. Typically, when we hire local contractors, we're hiring about 4 to 5 based on their specialization. So we'll have a roofing guy, we'll have an HVAC person for each one of those eligible activities. And for the construction piece, normally this will take about a year to complete. We try to work as quickly as possible because, as you can tell, when we expect to start is in September. We know that winter is coming, and we want to make sure everybody has heat in their homes before winter approaches. The total life cycle of this grant is 18 months, and we really do try to work as quickly as we can to get into homes and help people out as soon as possible. The last item, or the next item, is our communication plan for interacting with residents. One of the most important things with this program is clear and consistent communication. So at 4 major points, we plan to work with residents. One is at the grant award notification, notifying them that the city received funding. Then we'll follow up with their application. That's the income verification process. Then we'll meet with them in their homes to determine the scope of work, schedule contractor meetings, everything to make sure that they're satisfied with the work that is done. And then, of course, we want to know how we did and collect some customer feedback from those folks. But we have lots of ways of getting a hold of people now, so we'll try to take a holistic approach to that. Next is the suggested budget for a $350,000 grant request. As members of ARA, you know that grant writing is free for this program, and that is included with your ARA membership. Your local match today will go towards construction, so you can see that we're looking at about $342,000 for the work on people's homes. We're expecting to help about 25 homeowners at a minimum, depending on the amount of work that is required. For professional services, that includes your inspection fees. We had to add radon as an eligible expense, so that is included in that price as well. For grant administration, that price is normally about 8% of the total project cost. We have lowered that since you are ARA members to $10,000. Normally, I believe it's $32,000 for that price. And then environmental reviews, we need to make sure that each home is not located in a floodplain, so we need to make sure that we are able to use federal dollars on those sites. The next item for your awareness is the key public engagement activities that will be happening as part of this application process. So the first is we need to offer a survey through SurveyMonkey to collect feedback from residents. This is crucial for writing the application. We've been working on these for some other communities in the last few months, and we take exactly what is written on the survey by residents and include that as part of the narrative for the grant. And it's very persuasive to the review committee to hear real residents talking about their experiences in their home and what kind of impact this would have on them. The second thing is going to be a public hearing. This is going to be held preferably off-site, potentially at the library, and really it is just our ARA staff meeting with residents, helping them fill out applications, answering their questions, and providing them as much assistance as possible. And then finally, we'll be collecting letters of support. My goal is to have 5 from different community organizations, just expressing how either you're in this space where you're trying to help people with home repairs, or you know a neighbor who needs help, or any kind of from small to large scale impact this could have on the community. Anything would be wonderful, and if you want more information, you can email me at whitney@aracities.org. But those are the 3 things that I think should be on your awareness or on your radar as a council moving forward with this application. The next steps, once we pass the resolution tonight, that will help me advertise the public hearing accordingly, and we can host that sometime in late January, early February. And then, of course, there's a lot of paperwork that goes in with this application, which we take care of, and we will host the public hearing as well. But again, just those 3 items, again, the survey, the letters of support, and the public hearing itself, just thinking about the kinds of questions you will have from residents. So, are there any questions? I know I went kind of fast, but I know there are a lot of items on the agenda. Yes.
How will this be communicated to the people who may be in need of that service?
So, yes, that's a great question. Normally, Facebook has been very effective for reaching, it's at no cost to consumers. We normally put up flyers with QR codes around the city. Right now, we're just collecting survey responses, and then we'll open up the application process. But we've gone to food pantries, we've gone to community events, we've tried to make this program as known as possible in other communities. But we understand that there's also this digital divide where people don't always have access to internet or phones. So we can work with residents to get the assistance they need.
Thank you for a positive response.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned that's $342,000 for the full scope,
Yeah,
and then you're looking at 25 homes
yeah, we're looking at 25 homes at a minimum.
at a minimum. Okay.
Yeah.
Based on those numbers,
Mhm.
and you mentioned a $20,000 roof,
Mhm.
dividing that out comes out to $13,680,
Mhm.
$13,680 per home.
Mhm. Mhm.
Where does the extra funding come from for a $20,000 roof?
Sure. So when the applicants fill out their request or their need for services, they can select whichever service they need. So where $20,000 goes quickly, very fast. So depending on how they score based on their income, if they're a senior, disabled, veteran, single-parent household, and the amount of work that they need, we can come up with more ways for scoring that criteria. But normally HVAC systems are somewhere between 10 and 15. We might also be talking to a senior who's living alone who needs a new ramp. So really it depends on how much work is done. But typically the residents who need the most assistance will be helped first, according to the application, but they are limited at $25,000 per person.
And your contractors oversee it, so it's not like they get a check and then they just walk away. It has to be completed work.
No, absolutely. So, yeah, we guide them through the process as much as possible. They're signing off on paperwork at the beginning and the end of the project. Never is any money going into anybody's personal accounts. We'll work with the clerk treasurer to set up a fund and make draws. These are federal funds, so we know that, you need to be sensitive to that.
And because it's called owner occupied, the owner of the property must live there. So it's not available for rental properties, it's not available to landlords, it must be someone that lives there.
Good point. Yes, it is only eligible for homeowners who are low to moderate income. Their house has to be on a permanent foundation, nothing that can be taken to another state. With some exceptions, if their home is not insured, because let's say they don't have a roof or something, we can work with them, and if their insurance company is willing to do that as well. But those are the main requirements for this application. Minimum requirements, excuse me.
There's been some changes recently to allow Greensburg to be able to participate in this. You help a lot of other communities with it. It is a good opportunity to help those in our community invest in their largest asset, which is also great because it doesn't leave with them. So should they choose to sell their home or move, that home is improved in our community, which adds value to the community. Can you talk a little bit about how this changed from OCRA or it stayed with OCRA, I guess, instead of ICDHA?
So it is still CDBG dollars. It is just being held onto by the Office of Community and Rural Affairs. It used to just be passed through IHCDA. What makes Greensburg eligible for this program is that normally your entire city needs to be low to moderate income, but with this program you can help households on an individual basis. So if the household is low to moderate income, you can help them, but as a citywide project, Greensburg is still not eligible, unfortunately. And so that was a big breakthrough, I think, with the interest in this program, was that you are eligible for this program, and this is something new to the community, and it's very exciting that you are interested in it.
I think it's, I don't know if anybody else has questions for Whitney. I think it's worth trying. I think it's a interesting way to help a different segment of our population. As she mentioned, I did put in the resolution, the funds come from Riverboat. Those are outside dollars that we receive into our community, and I think this would be a good place to apply those. And ARA is going to work with us. Most of the onus on management falls to them, which is even a better reason to have our membership. But we'll work through. I think it's worth trying. It's 18 months. It's pretty good match percentage. We're doing a little bit more than the 10% match. That makes us a little more competitive. So that's why those numbers are slightly different. But I think having this amount of money to invest in a different segment of our population would be well worth trying.
Yes.
Anything else for Whitney? Somebody willing to make a motion to approve ordinance or resolution 2024-15?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mark, second by Darrell. Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you, Whitney,
Thank you.
for that. We'll look forward to.
Very excited, and thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Toby, to totally put you on the spot, you
Yeah.
haven't met our city council yet. Could you
I know.
do a 90-second elevator hi and what's up?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. My name is Toby Heron. I'm the new Executive Director of ARA. So I started earlier this year, so I'm kind of making my rounds to all the communities, and it's fun to be here tonight to talk to you about OOR. It's a pretty exciting program, and we're excited to, throw your name in the hat early next year. So my background is I have a for-profit and a not-for-profit background, mostly in finance, so kind of in finance, community relations, and also consulting. So it's a nice skill set to be able to bring to ARA and to all the ARA members that we have, and I look forward to doing even more with Greensburg. You've got a great person on our team with Whitney staffing your community, and she's got a ton of energy. Obviously, is clearly very smart and passionate about helping local government. So we're happy to be here this evening.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Toby. Okay, we will move on to Resolution 24-14, Brian Robbins with the EDC. This is for tax abatement for Northern Land Company LLC. Good evening, Brian.
Did you say, which resolution is it?
24-14.
Okay, is that the Whitaker?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, council. The Tax Abatement Review Committee met last Thursday to review the SB1 form that you guys should have before you. I'm here with Matt Whitaker, Whitaker's Construction, talking about the investment to be made on Veterans Way, taking advantage of the previous investments been out there. It'll be in the form of a hotel, 100-room hotel, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And the Tax Abatement Committee has recommended a 10-year phased-in abatement. And I'll just have Matt here if anybody has any questions on the project.
Just kind of give a background from the Tax Abatement Committee. We did approve this with a 10-year tax abatement recommendation for the council. And then maybe just one other piece is this hotel will be similar in look to the Fairfield Inn that's maybe by Texas Roadhouse in Columbus, correct?
It's the same.
So, yeah.
It's a 4-story Fairfield Inn and Suites. It's a Marriott property, 100 rooms, 15 to 20 employees. I think we tallied up, average would be around 19 or 20 bucks an hour, employees on average. A little over a $14 million investment. And like Jamie said, it's pretty much identical to the property that's over, if you're familiar with Columbus, right behind or in front of the Texas Roadhouse there.
I read the previous abatement was approved back in 19,
In 19.
and then, of course, COVID.
Yeah.
So how does that work with the time frame on that, since it didn't really get started?
This technically is a new application.
So there'd be a
They've
new
adjusted
application, so
the-
that one is off the
Yeah,
table.
so this was, they adjusted, of course, for inflation, investments are greater, salaries greater, so I guess it's kind of this new.
Labor and materials both quite a bit different.
Yeah.
19 to now. There's some adjustments that have to be made.
All of the paperwork surrounding that was revoked, so it was, in theory, erased through council action. So it's like it never even existed. Anything else for Brian or Matt? Would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24-14 for the standard 10-year abatement.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made by Darrell, second by Rodney. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Perfect. Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next is Resolution 2024-12. It's the confirming resolution of 24-10 and the tax abatement.
Yes, working on what the public hearing stated as well as what has been passed in the preliminary declaration for the ERA. What you have before you is a resolution outlining, not only confirming the area, but also, and I have actually Rick Hall here from Barnes and Thornburg, as well as Matt Anger from Ice Miller, to chat about the incentives that are attached to that. The abatement review committee oversaw the submission of 2 SB1s, which you should have before you, for a 10-year flat 60% real property tax abatement. And along with that, within that agreement, I'll let Rick talk a little bit more about that that you have before you. There's some additionals.
Thanks, Brian. As Brian indicated, Jumping Bison LLC has indicated an interest in building a data center here in Greensburg. And in connection with that, there was an incentive agreement that was negotiated with the company that would provide for 10-year real property tax abatement at 60% of the value. And then in addition, there's a data center exemption that applies for 35 years and it's 100% abatement on the data center equipment. This is a program that was put into statute several years ago by the state to attract data centers to the state and has been implemented elsewhere around the state. In addition to the benefits of the assessed value that will come to the community, the company would also commit to make a community impact payment, which would be in the amount of $1.3 million per campus that they build. This could be a multi-building campus eventually, and those payments would be made for 35 years, which is the same term as the data center equipment exemption. So the resolution that you have before you does three things. As Brian indicated, if you look at sections 1, 2, and 3 of the resolution, that confirms the creation of the economic revitalization area, indicates that there's no restrictions or limitations on the area, and that, as you know, you held a public hearing on earlier this evening. Then if you go to sections 4, 5, and 6, sections 4 makes the required findings with respect to this particular project in order to grant the real property abatement. And section 5 approves their statement of benefits, and then section 6 indicates that the abatement that would be provided would be for 10 years and for 60% of the real estate taxes. Then if you go down to section 8 and 9, this is where you approve the personal property tax exemption and agreement. And this is the document that actually formally grants the personal property exemption. In that agreement, by statute, you have to enter into an agreement with the taxpayer. And then section 9, just following through on that, authorizes the mayor to sign that exemption agreement in substantially the same form as it is now, with any appropriate updates. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We also have Matt Anger here from Ice Miller, representing Jumping Bison LLC. If there's any questions or anything you would like to elaborate on.
Good evening, Council. As Brian said, my name is Matt Anger. I'm from Ice Miller, and I represent the taxpayer in terms of negotiating the agreement as well as the abatement documentation. So if you have any questions for the taxpayer, I'm happy to try to field those.
It's a multi-phase?
Correct, yes. And the agreement is set up for the concept of a multi-phase. There's 2 phases. There's statements of benefits presented to you this evening for the first 2 phases. The agreement contemplates additional phases above and beyond that. But at this time, I think both the city and the taxpayer are contemplating 2 phases.
Your statement of benefits has a value for each phase?
Yes, the statement of benefits, which is for the real property abatement, contemplates a $400 million investment per phase, as well as the agreement that the wages paid for employees that are employed at the project would be 125% of the average wage of the county.
And the nationality of your company that you represent?
Yeah, it's a United States-based company.
Any other questions for Matt? Any questions for Rick or Brian? As was mentioned, the update or the tax abatement committee did review these, did recommend them for the 10-year with the fixed amount due to the scope and size and scale of the project, and all of that is laid out as mentioned. If there are no other questions, I would entertain a motion to approve Resolution 24-12 and allow me to execute that agreement and the abatements.
So moved. Or second. I'll second.
Motion's been made by Rodney, seconded by Jamie. Due to the significance of the investment, I think we should do a roll call vote, please.
Jamie Kane.
Yes.
Mark Carmen.
Yes.
Kevin Fleetwood.
Yes.
Rodney King.
Yes.
Diana McKenzie.
Yes.
Daryl Polling.
Yes.
Gerald Tressler.
Yes.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for all your work on this.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, Rick, Matt, thank you for your work as well. Okay, we will move on to Resolution 24-13, which is our end-of-year transfers. I believe Amy gave you printed copies as there have been some updates. Please feel free to take a look at those. Amy, what you got?
Sure. I'm going to kind of talk about both of them. You have your encumbrance list as well as the transfers. So good news is everything looks great on our budget. There's no need to transfer to cover anything as far as overspending on a line or anything like that. So that's really great. What I learned today at about 3:50, I had sent an email to the State Board of Accounts last week, I believe, asking if we could encumber the funds for CCMG, which Zach announced at the Board of Works that we have received 2024-2. Spoiler alert, sorry. And we wanted to make sure that we could encumber those funds because we technically had a contract with the state, with NDOT, to do this work. And they really said either or. They said you could either encumber those funds, or if you can transfer those funds to our CCMG fund by the end of the year, that's fine too. I felt it was cleaner, easier to go ahead and transfer those, so at the 11th hour, I went ahead and switched those off of the encumbrance and put it on the transfer list. So that's why there is a difference there from what you had earlier in Dropbox. So that way those funds are there and ready to go when we get them from the state, and we're ready to start that CCMG project. Next to, on the encumbrance list, I guess we'll do the resolution first. Any questions on the resolution for the transfers? The ones at the top on the transfer, that is for the Park Road that we've done in previous years.
Like the savings account component. Any,
Thank you. I will get that fixed. That's a Scrivener's error. I will fix that. Thank you.
any other questions on 24-13? If not, would take a motion to approve 2024-2013.
I didn't hear the clarification on that, $9 or $9,000?
It's 9,000. Yeah.
So, yeah, I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2024-13 as amended.
Everybody else, all those in favor of passing 2024-13, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
And then the encumbrance list, just as normal, as I've done every year, where it's currently appropriated, the number, the amount, and then the project it's associated with, or the contract it's associated with. Any questions on this? The asterisks were pending Board of Works approval. All three of those got approved, so those will be, we will be able to encumber those. I can also, if you remember from previous years, I can come in back in January if we find that there is something else that we need to encumber. There is one thing from the airport that I'm getting some clarification on that they can possibly approve on their January 2nd meeting that I might add to this list, because that way it doesn't affect next year's budget. And they currently have the funds, but.
Do you want us to approve this now, or do you want to wait until January then?
That would be fine if you want to wait until.
We can approve this, and I guess if you have additional, we can. I'll make a motion, we approve the list of encumbrances presented tonight. So,
Motion been made by Jamie, second by Kevin. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Yeah. Okay.
I guess that's the other thing, sorry, that's the other thing that I didn't mention is some of these could be taken off of the encumbrance list. For example, I believe Chief McNeely is working on getting the invoice for the PD cameras. So it's a possibility that those could be off of there and we would not need the commitment by the end of December, so.
Zach, you've got ordinance 24-27.
Good evening, council. 24-27 is for flood damage prevention, which is a requirement of our National Flood Insurance Program. So this was brought to me by DNR. I wish I could take credit for that whole document, but it is basically DNR's document. So I just plugged in the links. We have not updated our flood insurance requirements since 2013, so this is long overdue and, again, just a necessity for the flood insurance program.
Is this second reading?
This is
This is
first
first.
reading.
Okay.
Fun fact, there's no fees associated with this ordinance.
Subtle way of
I
saying.
know, I know what he was saying.
In case you guys were picking up what he was putting down.
Okay.
Chris, have you reviewed this?
It's DNR's document. We don't really
I was
have a
gonna
choice,
say,
right?
it's one of those things that comes across as you can accept it or you cannot, so.
I got to put my name in it, that was it.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we pass 2024-27 on the first reading.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules on 2024-27.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Make a motion we pass 2024-27 on second reading.
I'll create it. All those in favor, any first and second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
There you go, Zach. Got what you wanted.
You want to give us an update on Washington Street?
Washington Street is moving along well with Shooty Excavating, continuing to do stormwater and sidewalk work.